Hello, everyone. I am Corey Andrew Powell, and I am so honored to be joined today by entrepreneur Dana Marlowe. So, Dana is the founder and executive director of I Support the Girls, a nonprofit that provides bras and menstrual hygiene products to people experiencing homelessness, refugees, natural disaster survivors, and many others. Dana has worked and touched the lives of over 1.7 million people and distributed more than 21 million products worldwide. That's a lot of work. So today we're going to learn more about Dana's incredible journey and the challenges she's faced and what motivates her to continue to make the world a better place. So Dana, welcome to Motivational Mondays.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor, as I said, for me to have you here as well. First, I just want to start with my respect for women personally. Let's start with that. I come from a home of three generations of women. I was lucky enough to have mom, grandmom, and great grandmom at one point,
Wow.
and two aunts. So I just really, I get it. And I'm so happy that there's an ally for women who are in need. But we'll tell your story first. I wanted just to ask you, just to begin by telling your story, what inspired you to start the I Support the Girls organization?
So it was an accident. I didn't mean to start a global nonprofit, but sometimes accidents happen, right? So that is how this began. Um, Back in the summer of 2015, I woke up one morning and my husband said to me, "You know, I think it's time to shop for new bras." Which I'm sure a lot of your motivational Mondays probably open up with, let's go shopping for bras.
Right.
So I had to bring it back a step. Before that, I had worked hard at exercising and losing weight over the entire year before that moment. And I'm also a mom of two kids who are amazing. But things shift and change as one ages and goes through ages and stages in life. And after losing weight over the course of that year, things that were up here, higher up are now lower down, right? Just how
Yeah.
gravity works, right?
Yes, yes.
It's life.
Mm-hmm.
And that hot morning, my husband said, "You know what? You're wearing all these suits, you need a bra that fits." And so I went to my local mall and went to a a bra fitting, and they sell undergarments and pajamas and lingerie, and I went to go get fitted for a bra. So for any listeners who have never had the experience of getting fitted for a bra, it's a little bit uncomfortable because you're potentially going, into a small space and someone's getting particularly close to your chest to get their proper measurements so they can then go and pick out the best fitting bras for you. So it's a little awkward for those of your listeners who are or viewers are like, "Oh yeah, this is a weird experience." They're probably nodding their head like, "Oh yeah," because you're in there you are. I was in the small dressing room with this lovely woman who is taking my measurements so that I could get the proper size bra to support me. And I am I am a person who chooses to wear a bra out and about for back support, for pain, for comfort. And as I got fitted, it dawned on me. I had one of those little light bulb moments, ding. And I said to her name is Deneen, and I turned to her and I said, "What do I do with my perfectly good but no longer fitting old bras? Because I have so many of them that are shoved in my drawer. As my body changed shape, I just kept putting more and more in because I didn't know which ones I would need and which ones would fit right. And I wanted this one for this outfit and this bra for this dress and this one for working out." And she said, "Well," I said, "what do I do with my perfectly good but no longer fitting me bras?" And she said four really important words, Corey. She said, "Homeless women need bras. Full stop." And I hadn't thought about that until that moment in time, standing in this little tiny dressing room with Deneen, because I'm somebody who does donate a lot of my stuff. I donate my clothing, winter jackets. I donated my wedding dress after I got married. I donate furniture, my children's books, whatever it is. I'm happy to keep being part of that sustainability free cycle lifestyle, but I had never opened up my top drawer where I keep my bras and taken the bras out because I didn't know that they could be donated.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just thinking about that too because I used to work at Saks Fifth Avenue in New York, and sometimes I'd have to work in different floors, and one of them would be women's lingerie. And so there's a thought pattern that those are personal intimates. So once they're on one body, even if it's just once, that they must be they must be
Dude,
sanitized and thrown
right.
away, or right. And the distinction is that you're like these are gently used products like any other, and that could benefit other people, and that's the distinction you make.
Correct. And clean, once they're, properly cleaned and washed and whatnot. And so I went home that day, and I'm super nerdy also, and went online. I was like, okay, she said homeless women need bras. Let's take a look. I happen to live in the Washington D.C. area, and I went online and I found a homeless shelter near where I live in D.C. And I picked up the phone and I called them up and I said, I just learned about this need. I noticed that you were in this very recent article where you're looking to distribute bras to some of your clients that identify as women. Do you want some bras? But let me just tell you, I have 16 perfectly good bras, but they're all used. They're all washed. I will rewash them again, but they're not new. Is that okay? And the guy on the other end of the line, his name is Greg, said, oh my gosh, how soon can you get them here?
Wow. That's incredible. I mean, that's
And
really
I
incredible. Wow.
And I
Yeah.
didn't know that. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, well, I don't know what I don't know. So what else do you all need? How can I be of service? How may I help you? And he's like, well, if you're willing to bring your bras to donate to our clients, would you possibly be also willing to pick up some packages of maxi pads and tampons? Because we do not have them as a budgetary line item. We can't cover them in a lot of states. They are not covered under like even under any of the SNAP programs, food stamp programs, any of those like benefit programs. You still have to pay for them. They are not covered by them. And in half the number of states, there's also a sales tax on these items, making them that much more out of reach. So I was like, sure, I can go to my local big box store and pick up some packages of pads and tampons. And so then I took it from there and I decided to post on Facebook. And the response blew up. And my 16 bras immediately, like, things doubled, tripled, quadrupled. And ultimately, that first donation turned out to be just over 1,000 bras and over 7,100 maxi pads and tampons.
I just think it's fascinating because there's so many things happening in that story. One is just the empathy, first of all, just to put yourself in a position to be like, you know what? I want to just help some people because they may be in need. But you talked about, bras are not just cosmetic. In many aspects, they are for support. They can help with posture. They can help people with, just more of a clinical need versus just sort of like this idea that they just can help you look cute in a blouse, right? Um, but more importantly, the fact that there was such a need for them and that you went to social media, which can be a hotbed of all kinds of madness, from political arguments, debate, fighting over like, cats, um, anything,
Totally.
right? And then, it's an example of how the internet can be used for good. And there's another woman I interviewed. They call her the Black Fairy Godmother, and she has
I
a
love
very
it.
similar story where she went to Instagram to say there's a woman in need in this town whose electricity is turned off, and she's got like 3 babies or something.
Right.
Is anyone in that area who can help? And someone she vetted the person, and that person was okay, and they were right, and she went and she got them a space heater, like portable or something, and it became this huge network now that she's in with Oprah and Kelly Clarkson, and but it
Great.
started from a very similar story. So first of all, just as a human, thank you, Dana, for caring, you know,
Oh,
to
it's
help
that's
other people.
I think we all have to do our part, right? I think we all have to do our part. And the one thing that I'm really clear about is the beauty in I support the girls is it's never been just me. Even from the beginning, when it was like my family was involved, or immediately once I learned about this and I shared it on social, I learned that sometimes you just have to be able to provide a platform for people to do good in some kind of small, bite-sized, digestible way, and they want to do good. And it's just not always easy when the world is so vast, and you're not sure where to go, and people are super busy and time sliced, that sometimes these very specific asks of, does anyone have any spare bras in the back of their drawer? Or next time if you have a coupon and you're going to pick up your preferred package of tampons, can you pick up an extra box and we'll get that out to somebody in need? Because that was when I first started then learning about period poverty and menstrual equity and what that looks like.
Well, you bring that up too because it's a little disturbing that those things are not covered under some of the social programs you mentioned, which is really a little upsetting to me because it's almost as if um, it's kind of like, yeah, well,
I,
it feels like that, right? Like, no, that's a clinical need, like the
right.
food, like the clothing, right?
Correct. Yeah, I think there's a lot of programs that negatively impact women because sometimes women's needs are an afterthought.
Mm, yeah. And also the current, I mean, I thought I'd get to this a little later in the conversation, but this is a great segue. A lot of what we see now when it comes to women's body autonomy, stories like almost like policing women's periods, for example, young girls' periods in high school. It really shows you that sort of like there's this weird segment of society that believe that this part of women's existence is somehow theirs to regulate. And I will never, as a man, understand that. I have to be honest, and I hope other men out there who are listening to this really like get it. Like, if we think about it from our standpoint, if someone was going to come and tell me what I can do with my body or certain parts of my body specifically, we would be in the streets burning buildings down.
100%, 100%. And I'm thrilled to jump in here so early in our conversation, because I do think that there are a lot of men and people without periods who want to regulate periods, because periods and the menstrual cycle falls under the reproductive cycle, and then this gets into a larger conversation. Um, and now suddenly periods became politicized. Um, and I'm holding up here. So for any of your audio viewers, we just did a big campaign, and I realize that this might be being viewed in reverse, but it says just say period. It's a postcard that I'm holding up to the screen, and it has a couple images. In addition to the I Support the Girls logo, it has like a smiling tampon and a uterus doing yoga and a little blood drop, and a menstrual cup smiling and whatnot. And then on the back, it has information on this postcard that's addressed to Governor Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, who's in Tallahassee. And we basically say here, and I'll just read this little quick excerpt, that menstruation is a natural bodily process that affects nearly half of the population. And it's time to stop treating it as a taboo topic in Florida schools. Because if you're not familiar, they put a House bill together this spring in Florida that focuses on not letting girls in elementary school that are fifth grade and younger, in some places sixth grade and younger, who have periods. They can't talk about their periods. They can't ask for menstrual products. And this is a natural process. So if you have a fifth grade kid who goes into the school bathroom and there's no toilet paper, I mean, like, that's uncomfortable, but I would hope that someone can speak up and say, excuse me, can we please have some toilet paper in that restroom? So the same thing is about menstrual products and having access to them. And so we talk about, by educating students of all ages about periods, we can empower them with the knowledge and resources they need to manage their menstrual health and succeed academically. And so it goes on about providing access to menstrual products and creating supportive environments and whatnot. But it's a big issue when legislators want to regulate people's bodies, especially when they don't even understand the bodily functions.
Absolutely. Well, we had all those really bizarre statements in the past from certain members of the Senate and Congress who said crazy things about, oh, well, if a woman gets raped, her body will shut down the pregnancy. And not like there's like not one case in which that's a thing
Right.
documented by science. So, to have the grown-ups in the room in many cases be the ones to put forward all this misinformation. And, I'm sure that it is not uncommon for a girl to be maybe 10 or 11 or even as young as 9 and
9.
today menstruating, and then that goes into a whole other area of, god forbid, that young girl gets raped and becomes a victim of
Correct.
uh, incest and have to have a baby, there's legislation now to force her to have that baby.
It's
Uh,
awful.
I mean, when I unpeel all those layers, I'm at a loss for words. I can't imagine it. And it's a battle that's been going on, I guess, forever for women, and it's shocking that it's still happening in 2023. I think that's the more important thing. Like we haven't progressed from that argument.
Correct. It's wild to me that I have these conversations with my aunt who is 80, who is advocating for women's rights in the US years ago before I was born.
Hmm.
And here we are today. And I know that if my grandma Fran, who passed away decade, well, no, she passed away 11 years ago. If she were listening to the podcast, and she'd be a huge fan of yours, Corey. Again,
Oh,
I mean,
thank you.
she's no longer here to listen to a podcast, but
Yeah.
Grandma Fran would have totally loved you.
Hey, Grandma Fran in heaven.
Hey, Grandma! Shout out to Grandma
I
Fran.
love it.
She would have been. I mean, she would have been so riled up about this. And she was born in 1919.
Mm,
So yeah, there's that. And one of the things I support the girls does is our advocacy arm so that we can help raise awareness to combat these taboos and break down stigmas around menstruation, and basic dignity too, right? So much of what we do at our organization, at our nonprofit, focuses around dignity,
mm,
right? Because a proper fitting, well-fitting bra can make you feel more confident, stand up straighter,
right.
have your clothes lay right, and maybe go out for that job interview.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do serve, we're now up to 22.5 million products donated to
Wow.
4,500 different social service agencies, right?
Mm,
And so in nearly 8 years, 4,500 different agencies, thereby supporting a lot,
yeah.
worldwide, millions of people, um, are talking about these needs, and they're receiving products that we've been able to donate from like our generous community. And we're doing this advocacy work, whether it's at the state level to remove the tampon tax, or
Mm,
advocate at the Capitol Hill, like in the nation's capital level, or in other countries with their foreign ministries, for companies to have to disclose what's in the tampon, what's in the maxi pad, what are the ingredients that comprise these products that menstruators are putting on their body, in their body, next to their
mm-hmm.
body.
Mm. Yeah, it reminds me of I reference other people I've interviewed, but a lot of great women I've had on the show, and there's an author named Suzanne Corso who's really funny, and she said, you think we'd get more respect. I mean, after all, we do kind of give birth to the entire population. You'd think we'd get a bit more a bit more
Right.
respect with how our bodies are governed. But yeah, I just I'm hoping that legislation will continue to maybe be on the side of women, but it's a little scary now in that landscape. I do want to ask you though, as far as starting your business uh, as a woman entrepreneur, a business that is very women centric, did you have any outstanding obstacles that come to mind where you're like, oh, this was not as difficult? Because you mentioned that you kicked off really strong organically, but then as it formed into a business, were there challenges?
So we're not a business. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. So just for clarification, we run like a business. Most nonprofits do. So yeah, there have been not the biggest challenges early on have been trying to solicit financial donations from men, right? People who don't get why this is a big deal, people who don't understand why period poverty exists, why it's a big thing, and what it must be like. And so we have a variety of different programs that do everything from education, like the intersection of mental health and menstrual health, or our disaster relief program, so that when folks are evacuating from hurricanes or tornadoes or wildfires, obviously they're encouraged to grab their medication and their pets and food and staples. But oftentimes folks forget that they're going to need menstrual products, and they might need those products 2 days after evacuating whatever their home is. And they'll just be like, well, I'll be back. It won't be a big deal. I'll run to my pharmacy nearby. And there is no pharmacy nearby to go to, or there is no home to go to. And the federal programs don't always supply enough menstrual products, is what it turns out, because we constantly get emails literally every month from the Red Cross and we're not the size of the Red Cross, like, make no mistake. So we try to educate men that these issues matter, because it's you want to be able to safely and healthily manage your menstrual cycle.
And also, men, and for the most part, well, I don't know about for the most part, but a lot of men clearly have women in their families, young women who are still in the menstrual phase of their lives. And um, you would think that they would want to then just kind of arm themselves to take care of the women better in their lives as well. So I think that's a part of it for me. That's, you know, a big missing part of this. Like, I think if men understood that, hey, that could be your niece, your daughter, your cousin, whomever. And I'll share quickly a little story. Someone very lovely, who was a friend of mine, shared with me that her mother passed when she was very young, and the father had to then care for her and her three sisters, or two sisters, I believe it was. And so there's the father being this beautiful, endearing father trying to explain and very astutely and effectively, like on the other side of the door, trying
Right,
to share with her how to utilize these products. And he's doing it alone as a
right,
dad.
right.
Um,
Yeah,
I love that story, and I think you know it's that mindset that men have to have. It's just another bodily function, and the women in your life need to be taken care of accordingly. And so again, men listening, please understand that this is not just a women's issue; it is a people issue.
right. And as you
Yeah.
said, I guess as you said from your prior guest, Suzanne Corso, I definitely share that same sentiment. Is everyone on this planet is here because of a missed period, right?
Hmm.
Like, so we should be able to talk about how periods work, because
Yes, I mean, there it
everyone
is. Yeah.
I mean, everyone here is either everyone here is here because of a person with a uterus gave
Yeah.
birth to them and they
Yeah.
had a period, and like, so it's mind numbing to me when folks can't empathize and feel and get that understanding, because it should be that easy. And for your example, that lovely story with the then single dad
Hmm.
with the daughters. Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot, again, now there's a lot of resources out there for folks to go to, but it's even just having access and knowing where those resources are, because it
Right.
can be scary for some young, for some young girls who don't know
Hmm.
about what's happening to their body as a normal process.
Yeah, because there's a whole other part too. Some young girls, I mean, not to like reference an extreme, but I think of the movie Carrie, for example. But you know,
Right,
there are some kids in homes where like it's even taboo within their own family structure because uh in many cases the parents may think, oh, that means my daughter is going to be sexually active now, and they,
right,
you know, that has nothing to do with the fact that her body is doing what it's going to do regardless of if she's active or not, but it becomes a
right.
taboo thing, and the girl may not even be able to talk about it to her own parents. And that's why legislation of like not being able to talk about a period if you're not over the fifth grade is just it's ludicrous, because sometimes schools are a first line of
Yes.
connection for kids who are not getting it at home, whether it be gender identity issues, so many other potential things.
Totally. Yeah, school playgrounds, I feel like, is where so much communication happens. And whether
Hmm.
that information is accurate or inaccurate remains to be seen, because that's going to happen on schoolyards all globally, no matter what, because kids are
Hmm.
sharing what they learn.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but having that access to have correct information about one's body so that they can make decisions and have their own body autonomy even at those young ages is so critical.
Hmm. Absolutely. And you know, you're doing great work, and it's successful by all accounts. And I did wonder, was there ever a moment where there was like, as you were doing this, there was like this one like memorable moment throughout the work you've been doing? You're like, wow, that was a really great thing that just happened with through, you know, through what we're doing here. Any standout moments?
Oh my God, there have been so many, Corey. There's so many standout moments. One that comes to mind is my conversation with a woman named Crystal, here in the DC area, and I was bringing in, to a homeless shelter in Washington DC, around 1,000 bras and about 2,000 pads and maybe about 5,000 tampons and about 5,000 other toiletries. And this is, we were earlier on, maybe we were about 2 years in at this juncture. And I had a moment where I was able to talk in their part of the building where they have their clothing for clients that they can kind of shop, shop through and receive products. And there was a woman there who was just standing outside waiting, and she's like, "I heard there were going to be bras delivered today. May I have a bra?" I was like, "Sure." I'm like, I don't know how they're distributed here, what the policies are at this particular entity, because we always want to make sure that policies are being followed based on the other nonprofit that we're partnering with. And they came and they said, "Absolutely, feel free to get her some bras." So we fit Crystal that day, and she said, I said, "Look, we have 1,000 bras here, so we absolutely have your size and styles. I'm sure we can find what you're looking for. So what would you like?" And she said, "Well, may I have two things?" And I said, "Absolutely." She said, "Well, the first one is I would love a red lacy bra." And I said, "Okay." So she was measured, we knew her size, so I wanted to get her several red lacy bras. So then she went back and she was trying them on in the dressing room, and she'd come back out when she was done, and she said, "Okay, this is great." So she found one. I said, "Okay, no problem. Can I ask, does that color or style have any meaning to you?" And she said, "Well, she said she's a person who experiences homelessness and has for a long time. And she's like, but I used to be an artist. I used to love painting in watercolor, and my life took some unexpected turns, and here I am, years later, and it's not safe living on the streets. It's not fun living on the streets, but this is my life right now." And when I'm out and about in DC in the metro or the subway system, sometimes there's big ads and photos of pictures of women in red lacy bras for different advertisements, and they always look so happy. And sometimes I see them on magazines, like at corner stores or bodegas, like in the magazines covers. And I want a red lacy bra too. So I was like, okay. So she got the bras that fit her that day. And she said the thing about a red lacy bra for her is, she's like, so often I have to carry all my belongings on my back. So she was in a lot of layers that day. It was a chilly day, but she was in multiple sweatshirts and sweaters and button down shirts and long sleeve t-shirts and jackets and scarves, like heavily layered while we were indoors even for a bit. And she said, "I can go to the different shelters, even if it's not particularly safe. And the thing about a red lacy bra is that I'll know it's here near my heart. I'm going to be able to know it's there, and it's going to make me smile. And nobody can take that away from me, and they won't even know it's there."
Oh man. Wow. Or oh woman, I should say. Uh, that's an amazing example of the emotive response that things like that can do for someone. And I think that's amazing because my follow up question to you was actually going to be connected to that, which is tied to obstacles of dealing with misconceptions of homeless people and the stereotypes of homeless people. Like I wondered if you've had to deal with some of that, this notion that they don't care about themselves, but they're homeless. Why would they care about a bra? Like, I mean, it seems like that would be something that also based on stigma and misguided stereotypes you would have to also face. But then she's the example of why that's not the case.
Right. Yes. And I would say on this journey for me in the last nearly 8 years, I've met a lot of people experiencing homelessness and refugees and asylees and survivors of domestic violence and victims of human trafficking, who have received our products and who have shared their stories with me. And each story is so unique and so special and meaningful, and it propels me to do more. It propels me to think differently. It propels me, and that's how we've created some of our programs. I mean, during COVID, we wound up, not because we don't normally do direct service, because we're donating to established, vetted other nonprofit social service agencies. We had to come up with a way to help people during early COVID when a lot of those agencies were closed because of the pandemic. And so we came up with our dash kits for survivors of domestic violence. And then from there, though, we started getting requests. We donate hundreds of thousands of products to centers and organizations that focus on the trans community, for folks that are trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming. And yes, great, but they tend to be in larger cities. Okay, and this is how we had this need, because we started receiving emails of folks that were in more rural communities or communities where there were no services. And so we created our slash kit so folks could request, if that's a US only program, where they could request things like a binder, or period underwear, or packers, or makeup, or toiletries, or other kinds of menstrual products, depending on also what we have in our inventory, but that it's a customizable, bespoke box that ships in the mail to them if they don't have access to a center nearby.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Because
we
think about
learned,
that, like if you're like in Wichita, Kansas or something, or like, really where there's no, we take for granted being in DC, I'm in New York,
right,
we have a lot of opportunities and services, but you're right. If you're like in Nebraska and on a farm, it's
right,
not so much.
right, and a lot of the same sentiments that folks who are messaging into us in our social media or writing in have said, it's not safe for them to go to the store and buy packages of maxi pads or tampons, or vice versa, to go get fitted for a bra. How can we help? And so uh, a lot of times the stories that folks share makes us think differently, so that we can better support more individuals in need when we start seeing similarities, in requests, or requesting items. And so
Awesome. Great information. Thank you so much, Dana. We're so happy you were here today with us. Dana Marlowe is the founder and executive director of I Support the Girls, a nonprofit that provides bras and menstrual hygiene products to people experiencing hardship. So thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.